Temp check. What kind of summer are we having this year? A family road trip summer? A beach bum summer? Or a wake me up when the sun sets summer? With Instacart, choose your own adventure and skip the shopping side quests. Where available, you can get ice cream delivered to your hotel, sunscreen to the pool, or cold brew to your bed. Well, door, in as fast as 30 minutes. Wherever you find yourself this summer, you can get the goods. Download Instacart for free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum $10 per order. Excludes restaurants. Additional terms and fees apply.
As a person with a very deep voice, I'm hired all the time for advertising campaigns. But a deep voice doesn't sell B2B, and advertising on the wrong platform doesn't sell B2B either. That's why if you're a B2B marketer, you should use LinkedIn ads. LinkedIn has the targeting capabilities to help you reach the world's largest professional audience. That's right, over 70 million decision makers all in one place. All the big wigs, then medium wigs, also small wigs who are on the path to becoming big wigs. Okay, that's enough about wigs. LinkedIn ads allows you to focus on getting your B2B message to the right people. So, does that mean you should use ads on LinkedIn instead of hiring me, the man with the deepest voice in the world? Yes. Yes, it does. Get started today and see why LinkedIn is the place to be to be. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
And welcome back to Scarred for Life, the podcast where we open up old wounds by looking back at the films that scared us as kids. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth.
Each episode, our special guest will bring with them a movie that traumatized them as a child.
This week, our guest is Andrew Scott Bell. He's a composer who's worked on numerous horror short films, as well as the upcoming anthology film Deathsumber. He's also scoring Shudder's queer horror documentary. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This is really exciting.
I'm really excited that you're here, and I'm really excited that we can talk a little bit about the queer horror doc.
Yeah.
But before we do that, we always ask, how did you get into horror?
I got into horror kind of in a roundabout way. I didn't expect to score horror films. When I first moved to LA, I scored a short film called Rocket. And one of the writers of that short, his name is Ian Hawke, loves horror movies. So he went on to do some horror movies and thought, Andrew, that composer from Rocket, would be really great in horror. And I never really expected to get into horror. It wasn't something that I watched a lot as a kid. We can get into that a little bit more later, but I just didn't think of my career going in that direction. So when Ian first asked me to score Foxwood, which was my first horror short film, it was just so much fun. And he was right. I would enjoy it. And I think I really enjoy it. So that's kind of how that happened.
That's awesome. So, how does one go about scoring a movie or a short or any of that kind of stuff?
I have wanted to talk to a composer for so long because I just want to dig into the brain of someone like you and be like, how do you do it? Where does the inspiration come from? Because it just seems like such a daunting task for me, someone who does not play instruments or really have any musical inclination other than liking to listen to it.
Yeah.
So I just want to hear the process, like Terry said, how do you score a film?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like, how do you write a film? I feel like sometimes I don't know how I score a film. Every one is so different from the other. It really comes down to the interactions between the director and me, and what he or she is looking for, and what I might bring, and how I might bring that to their film. I don't know how. It's a hard question to answer because it's like, how do you write, or how do you dive into a character as an actor? So something like that.
Is it something where, like, because like I know nothing about it. Is it something where they will send you like an entire completed film and you start scoring it, or are you involved earlier on in it? How does your involvement, does it depend from film to film or short film to short film?
Yeah, every film is a little different. So sometimes I get like very close to or locked. Mostly it's locked picture, especially shorts. Like shorts, we can score it when it's locked because there's not too much time. But yeah, it's usually pretty close to being done when I come on board. But for example, this queer horror doc, I'm involved in this process. I'm seeing the cuts as they're being edited, which is not typical for me, but you have to work with the process that film is working with when you work on it. That makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. That's another question. I mean, we can dive right into this because what I'm kind of curious about is how do you, when you are like composing a horror movie, it kind of makes sense about how to, raise tension and that kind of stuff. But like when you're working on a documentary, how do you go about composing for that?
Yeah, it is all the different genres of film are a little bit different in how you write for them. A documentary, I think the music almost plays as like a second. I mean, in most film, the music almost plays as a second narrator, or the narrator in the instance where there's not a narrator. But in a documentary, you're really helping the audience as a second narrator, because usually there's somebody driving us through it. And in this case, it's Sam Weineman, who is an excellent driver.
Yes. Sam had so many nice things to say about you when he found out that we were interviewing you, by the way.
Oh, he did? Oh, that's so great.
Yes, he did.
Yes.
I love Sam so much.
He seems like a really cool guy, and I'm hoping that we'll be talking to him soon for this podcast as well. But he like all of a sudden just reached out to me yesterday, and he's like, "I hear you're talking to my friend Andy. So fucking cool." Is that quote?
He's great.
And yeah, so let's back up a little bit because of that, because he told me that you co-collaborated with him on the last 3 years of Christmas music for him that he does to raise money for the AIDS life cycle.
And I feel like we've raised over, I don't want to misquote here, but I feel like it's over 20,000 or something. It's a lot of money we've raised, especially last year. We raised a lot of money.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How did you and Sam get to know each other?
I met Sam. So that Rocket film that I mentioned earlier was a Chapman thesis film. Okay. And through that film, I met so many wonderful filmmakers in all parts of the film industry that are just coming out. At the time I met them, they were students. Now they're coming out into the industry. And Sam was one of those people. I don't remember what. I had scored another movie the year after Rocket, and another student film. And I was there at the screening because they have like a little kind of screening for each block of films. I was there and I saw The Quiet Room, which is incredible. And I think it's on Shudder. If any of your listeners haven't seen it yet, it is so good. And so when I saw that, I said to my partner, Ashley, I got to meet this guy because he's incredible. And I want to maybe work with him. And I walked up to Sam and kind of like waited in line because there were so many people waiting to talk to him. And I just stood there and I met his mom because she was standing there also waiting to talk to him. It was crazy. It was like meeting a celebrity. But I got to meet him very briefly, and then we connected via social media, and then that was in the spring. And then by the time the fall came around, he reached out to me and said, "Sorry, we haven't gotten to work on a movie yet, but I have this idea that I want to kind of remix some of my old Christmas songs. I don't know if you guys know this. I don't know if Sam would be mad if I tell this, but Sam used to be a MySpace celebrity
What?
Oh my God. What?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He used to sing like parody songs.
No way.
On MySpace. And he was in like the top 10 or something, like, you know, videos a bunch of times.
Oh my God.
And they were all very funny.
Oh my God.
And so some
that's
of them were
amazing.
Christmas songs. So that first Christmas album, like 2017, was a remix. We like took a bunch of his songs that he had written over the time that he was on MySpace and some after, and we kind of remixed them and reimagined them into like a different genre or this or that. So yeah, that's interesting.
That's amazing.
Wow.
We're going to have to look up those videos of Sam.
Yeah.
I just Googled it to have it as a tab open
I don't
later.
I think it was by his name, Anywhere But My Face. So if you Google that, maybe you'll
Anywhere
find
But
it
My
there.
Face. Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Which is perfect.
Stalk Sam Weineman on MySpace if that's even a thing.
I don't even, yeah, maybe.
We're going to have to bring this up with him and have a discussion about this part.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. So is it through Sam that you got involved with Deathcember? Because I don't know if our listeners know, but it's a long, from what I understand, anthology film that's each day of Christmas, I believe.
Yeah.
And I haven't had a chance to see it yet. I've seen Sam's segment, which you also composed, from what I understand.
I did, yeah.
How did you get involved with Deathcember? Was it through Sam?
It was Sam wanted to bring me on to score his, and then kind of through brainstorming with some of the other LA directors, we kind of thought like, hey, we should, well, mostly them, they brainstormed and said, hey, we should share as many crew as possible. So it was from that I also scored Vivian Vaughn's short, which has Barbara Crampton in it. It's incredible.
Ooh, that's so cool.
I'll send you guys that. If you want to see, it's really good.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I scored those two, and then I kind of met the two directors, the two producers, and started a conversation about the main theme and who was going to score that. And they asked me to submit a demo, and I did, and then I got the gig, and it was just so incredible working with the orchestra in Budapest who recorded the score to Get Out, and
That's so
now
cool.
they just recorded the score to Parasite. This is like,
holy shit.
and they played my music. It was an incredible experience. Like, yeah, it's amazing.
That is incredible.
Yeah,
we will
really,
link to
really cool.
to your website, because that's how I first, when this all started going down, I was like, I'm gonna go see who this guy is, and I was listening to, because you have the Deathcember suite. Is that's the theme, correct?
Yeah, that's actually a combination. That's the one on my landing page is the Deathcember suite, which I have queued up if you wanted me to play a clip of it.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Ooh, that
Please
would be
do.
awesome. I was going to say, I want to cut to a clip of the songs. That would be
Here
awesome.
we go. Of course, it keeps going.
That's
But that is the
so good.
Oh, thank you.
It sounds like Nightmare Before Christmas, like Danny Elfman, but like more epic in a way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
with like the horn. Wow.
Yeah, we're kind of Christmassy. We're going for that Christmas vibe, that kind of creepy Christmas vibe. We didn't want it to be. I mean, there are some shorts in Deathcember that are like really gory, and so we were trying to find that balance of like, you know, not the entire movie is that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So where do we play? I think we landed on a good, this is going to be an exciting, fun ride. And we kind of landed on that sound, I think, which was really nice.
What I love about it is it's very majestic, but it also has a very kind of playful nature to it. But then there's also kind of a little bit of sinisterness to it. So I was blown away when I heard that on your site.
Well, thank you.
And I really can't wait to see Deathcember.
I know that song gets me hyped to see Deathcember.
Oh, that's great. That's the point. That's amazing. Thank you. Yeah, that's the suite. So and then it transitions into, in that iteration, transitions into the main theme from Vivian's short with Barbara. And then it transitioned from that to the theme of Sam's short, which you would recognize, Terry. And then it transitions back into the Deathcember theme. So that's the suite that plays during the end credits. And there's another version of the theme that plays during the opening credits. But it's very similar.
So I have a very novice question here. So you send your music to the orchestra and then they record it, but you don't meet with them to talk about it? Like you just would send your compositions to them?
Yeah. And actually in this case, what we did, because they're in Budapest, my orchestrator and I have to give a shout out to Oscar Senin because he's an incredible orchestrator. He just was the lead orchestrator on the new James Bond movie. Which is incredible. God. He's amazing.
Cool.
So yeah, that's when I read that, when I saw that news, I texted him and I said, Oscar, that's a box that you check off in your musical life. You worked on a Bond movie, right? So God. He's amazing. So he and I would send him the music and he would notate it and write it up for the orchestra.
Cool.
And then he sent them the PDFs that they printed. And on the day, he and I got on a conference call, a lot like what we're doing now, where we would listen to them and then give notes, and they would do another take, and then we would give notes. And then after that, they sent us all of these massive Pro Tools files of all of the audio from that session.
That's awesome.
Yeah, wow. It's really cool. I can't wait to do it in person. One day when I'm sitting in the room will be so great.
Yeah. That's such a cool thing to work with that massive orchestra and get to talk to them and give them notes. It's just it's such a cool process.
Yeah. I feel very blessed.
So I kind of want to also go back a little bit and find out how you got into music, because I love music. I come from a musical family. My dad, he played piano in the Air Force band. He was part of the...
Oh, that's great.
Because he was going to get drafted into the Army, so he joined the Air Force, and he was studying music, so he was a pianist, and he played trombone and stuff. So my mom plays drums, my brother plays drums. I grew up playing saxophone. I love music. So I'm just kind of curious how you got into music and how you just decided to do composing.
Well, first of all, it cut out when you said what instruments you played. What instruments did you play, Terry?
I played saxophone.
Oh, saxophone. That's awesome. Yeah. I love saxophone.
I played alto sax in concert band and in marching band. I was bass or tenor, depending on for jazz. And yeah.
There's a great video essay I watched recently. Can't remember by who, but it was about tracking how and why we associate saxophone with sexuality and and it goes all the way back to A Streetcar Named Desire and how that film score used the saxophone because they couldn't show the characters having sex. The saxophone would play in these scenes where they had just finished having sex. So
that's what I love about music is the way that it can tap into specific things. It can hint at sex, or it can hint at fear, or at any emotion. It's such an emotionally powerful, which I'm sure we'll get into when we talk about the movie we're going to talk about today. But so how did you get into music?
So very young, I think I was always kind of a weird kid, and my parents picked up on that, and they were like, we got to give him something to channel this through. So they tried so many different things. I was in ballet because my friend Kayla was in ballet. So I was like, that would be fun. And then it didn't really interest me because I just wanted to dance by myself over in the corner.
Right.
So one of the things they tried was piano lessons, and I hated piano lessons, but I loved playing the piano. So I didn't really like being told what to play.
Oh my God,
but I liked
same.
playing. And I think that's it. Kind of all came from there, because I kind of put it away for a while. And then later in life, I came back to it, not in a lesson structure, just with my own ears. And I have to attribute a lot of this to Alan Silvestri and his score to Forrest Gump. Because
wow,
it's so good. It's such a good score.
It is a beautiful score.
Oh, it's the best. or one of the best. We're about to listen to some of the best. But my parents had this CD that was mostly like popular songs like Bob Dylan and you know, rock songs from the 60s, 70s from the Forrest Gump movie. But the last track on the second disc was A Suite of Themes by Alan Silvestri. And I used to come home, and I had moved my CD player from my bedroom to the piano, and I would come home from school and press play and just try to learn it by ear. And I feel like I'm going to mess it up, but if I could. Like, I still know it to this day. I mean, I messed it up, but I still kind of know it to this day.
No, yeah.
And it's I love how much music like makes you feel like, just hearing that part of it. I was like, oh my God, Forrest Gump. And then you get emotional thinking about like watching that movie. Like, I mean, not even just for the movie, but for like the experience of watching it with like my family, because my family loves that movie for some reason. But yeah, it's like the experience, like the emotions that dredges up about memory rather than just the act of watching.
Right. Yeah. Did it bring you back to the room with your family?
It did.
Yeah. That's so special.
Yeah. It is.
That's
really
something
special.
I love about films and movies. My family really bonded by watching movies together. Because I feel like sometimes in America you don't, for whatever reason, verbalize love the best way. And I don't want to say that was my family, because my family was very vocal, but sitting together in a room and watching a movie was a way to feel love without saying, I love you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the same for me growing up.
Yeah.
In the 80s, it was definitely like it was a whole family experience. And it was I think you just summed it up pretty perfectly. Yeah. Yeah. Huh.
So that's how I got to music, and then and not to change it back, but I mean we just had a moment. I should let the moment sit. Look at me trying to ruin our moments, Terry.
Gosh. I was having a moment right there. My mind was just like wandering back to being a kid, which again, we're going to talk about soon as well, because man, this movie that we're going to eventually be talking about, but I don't want to get there. So yet, we should enjoy this moment.
Yeah. So it was E.T. No, sorry. You can edit that out. Here we go. Cut. Yeah. So it was Forrest Gump, and that's what brought me back to music. And then in band and in high school, I started to get into composing my own music. And at the time, I had a really wonderful band director, Chris Smith, in high school that was really encouraging. And he started a music theory class, which if I look back on it, it might have been just for me, because it was like me and 4 other people, you know?
Yeah.
And he just knew I was really passionate about it. So he really encouraged me at that time when you need someone who's not your parents to encourage your creativity, if you know what I mean.
I do, definitely.
100%.
And music educators are unsung heroes of the music industry, truly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a moment where I had contemplated going down that route as being a music educator, because it's music has always been so important to me. And you just talking about the music theory class that you had to take, or that you took, my senior year of high school, we did have a music theory class, and it was probably me and like 5 or 6 other people. And one of the best things, the best memories I have of high school was taking a song. Our final project was taking a song and composing it, and then the band would play it. And that was one of the
that's so cool.
That was one of the best memories I have of high school, to be honest.
Do you still have the song?
No.
Do you still have the piece? Why not?
No,
somewhere?
they didn't record it.
Oh, no, I mean the written. That you must have the written score somewhere.
I don't. That was so long ago.
Well,
no, but
it exists in your memory, which maybe is even better.
Yeah, it was quite special to see that come to life. So I can only imagine how it would be for you, since, you know, music has become such an important thing for you.
Yeah, it's very special to hear human beings playing my music back to me. I don't get to experience it as often as I'd like, because in the modern world you can load up a violin patch and play it on your keyboard.
Yeah.
But even though that sounds very realistic, and it sounds like I have 18 violins in my room right now, there's not quite anything like hearing 18 human beings tell you what they think your music is saying back at you.
Yeah.
It's really something special.
And I think that's transitioning back to Deathcember, the score, because that theme, that suite just really hit me. And I think it's probably because it is humans playing an instrument. Yeah. It's not a sample. It's not something that a computer has generated. It feels alive in a way that just like the violins you just played don't necessarily.
Right. And you can emote a lot of intention and a lot of emotion into samples and computer samples, but it's still just like that extra step. It's like I often compare it to the difference between Siri and a human being speaking words, where
that's a perfect analogy.
Obvious that Siri is speaking, and she sounds quite lifelike. You can, make her have different inflections that are humorous, but it's not quite the same.
Right. Wow.
Well, it feels weird to transition to talk about what we've been watching, but that is technically what we should do next.
Yeah, I want to hear what you guys have been watching.
It's just like a moment, and then I'm like, watching. Well, where do we go from here, guys? It's over.
This is such a great. I'm really having a good time with this conversation.
Yeah, so am I. Oh, this is so cool. Just because I feel like it's such a good, interesting, like a different side of like filmmaking that people know about, but we don't talk about as much. And I think it is really amazing to hear your perspective on the importance of music, but also just your relationship with music.
Yeah, well, thank you. I was shocked when I found out that a lot of film schools also don't have a class, not even like a music appreciation class. They don't cover the process of music in a lot of film schools, which was shocking to me because it seems so vital to the filmmaking process.
Yeah, that is shocking because I feel like a score to me can make or break a movie.
Sure.
Like if a score is like a little bit too much or it just doesn't match like the emotions you're supposed to be getting from the film, I feel like that can really affect your experience with it. And
it
feels like you probably want to tell people how to, work with a composer or get music for your film.
Yeah, I can't count the amount of times that a director has said to me, I've never worked with a composer before.
Oh, wow.
Boy. But they had made several films before, using library tracks or just like popular music. Yeah. But this is part of what I'm so thankful to be on this podcast, for, and I'm so thankful to have an Instagram and the places where I can say, this is what so many composers now are saying, this is what I'm up to. This is what I'm doing. This is why music is important. This is why live players on the music are important,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I'm thinking back to, because when I grew up, I purchased a lot of soundtracks to movies. Like I still remember wearing out my Titanic CD.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
Or like Jerry Goldsmith's music. Like I was a huge Jerry Goldsmith fan. Just like buying those scores and just listening to that. And I don't really do that anymore. And I sometimes wonder if films and this might speak to the greater issue that you're kind of talking about, is that if they're not teaching the importance of music in film, or is that in a way hampering the amount of music that we're going to get in a film? Because to be perfectly honest, I don't know the last time that I've like sat down with like I'm not talking independent films, because there's been some independent films like Daniel Isn't Real from last year, but like a big movie, like a Marvel movie or something that I'd be like, ooh, I got to own that score for.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot going into that. And part of it is, I think, audience taste. It's not just at it's not just the filmmakers making this decision. It's not just the studio or the producers. It's audience taste. And somewhere along the way, audiences said to filmmakers, hey, that's cheesy, That big sweeping theme is cheesy. And I think it's just a matter of taste and the waves that preferences ride. And I think we're swinging back towards a more melodic. I mean, Star Wars is back, and a great example of this is that Alan Silvestri came back to score the last 2 Avenger movies, and those 2 movies have such big, wonderful themes. You talk about Marvel, I would recommend checking out that score, both of those scores, because they're so good. And he treats the subject matter with, like, not that the other composers didn't, because they did, but Alan really has a way to treat the subject matter he's working with so much respect and so much joy and effort.
That's awesome.
I will say, I listened to the Hereditary.
I think it's just a taste.
Sorry.
No. Tell me. The Hereditary score is so good.
I know that's not really like a big blockbuster, but it was a relatively successful horror movie, and that soundtrack is amazing. I also love Colin Stetson, because he did the Color Out of Space score as well, which I really love.
Did he do the next one?
Midsommar?
Yeah, did he do Midsommar?
No, I don't think
score
so.
is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Midsummer score is phenomenal. But he didn't do Midsommar, but he did Color Out of Space, and he did Hereditary, which I love. And I also love the Us score as well.
Yeah, it's good.
So good.
Yeah. But I think, like, I am glad that the horror soundtrack, I feel like, is coming back in a way a little bit. Like, there's a little bit more focus on making, like, a badass soundtrack and putting it out on vinyl. Like, because Terry got me the Daniel Isn't Real vinyl for Christmas because he's the best, and I love that that score. And it's like, I feel like that is kind of coming back a little bit to me in a way. So,
do you know what I think is interesting, to go back to our conversation about how I came to horror and why I really loved it when I started, is that it seems to me like genre films, but really horror films, aren't afraid to let the score be so present.
Yeah.
And I think that gives it a lot of weight to our enjoyment of it. When you can tell that a film score is like trying to not be noticed, it hurts the film score and it hurts the film sometimes.
Yeah.
But in a horror movie, it's like big and in your face, and like, we want to hear it.
Yeah.
Especially
really
when
cool.
people learn how, like, not learn, but when it's timed to a way where, like, it's really noticeable, and then all of a sudden it's gone and you're like, holy shit. And then it comes back all of a sudden to really get at you. And like, the use of music in horror, like you said, is so important, I think, to the effectiveness of the scares and the emotional connection you have to it.
You saw Milk and Cookies, which is Sam's Deathcember segment. Part of what Sam and I did was build this false sense of security with the music.
Yes.
Because there's music throughout the whole thing, and it's very like John Williams-y, Home Alone, childlike, Christmas fun. And then part of the way through the movie, the music just drops out.
I noticed that.
So vulnerable and so low.
I noticed that, because it definitely has a kind of like you mentioned, a playful vibe to it almost, and a kind of like childlike innocence to it. And then it goes away, and then it gets really ominous. And I thought the short, it's a perfect 5-minute short. It's such a good little journey.
Well, thank you. Kudos to Sam, really. He's the captain of that ship.
So now do we want to talk about what we have been watching recently?
Yeah, I want to hear it. I want to hear what you two have been watching so that I can stop watching what I'm watching.
So, Terry, what have you been watching recently?
So I have 2 things to briefly talk about. The first one is I'm, as I mentioned in last week's episode, I'm trying to dig through my immense backlog of movies because I'm a collector of them. I have a whole ton of them, and I haven't watched them. And so I'm making a valiant effort to try to get through them, and I'm using the podcast as a way to keep me motivated to watch them and get through them. So I watched Spookies.
Oh my gosh, I own Spookies but haven't watched it yet. Tell me everything. Is it good?
Oh my god, it's something.
It's something. Okay.
Spookies. Huh? I'm gonna write this down.
Yeah, it's
that was a Vinegar Syndrome release recently,
right? It was a Vinegar
right?
Syndrome. Yeah, and it's been like caught up in Wright's hell for like forever, and no one thought they would ever release it. I'm still not quite sure how Vinegar Syndrome released it. Because, you know, sometimes these little independent movie distributors find ways to get something out there that is kind of iffy. Like, I remember Severin released, I forget what the movie is called, but they released it with the Terminator 2 sleeve because that's what it was released outside of the US. It was called Terminator 2. And so like, weird. And there was like legal issues here, obviously. I don't know why, but, but yeah, so like, yeah, so Spookies, it was a movie that got filmed in 2 parts. They filmed it, and then there was like issue with the filmmakers and the producers. It kind of sat there, and then like a few months later, the producers hired a different director to come in and film additional scenes, and then splice them all together, and boy, does it feel like 2 different movies are happening at once. Because there's like there's a plot involving this kid that's like run away from home, and he's being stalked by some werecat with a hook.
Hell yeah.
I'm into it, yeah.
Meanwhile, right, and there's this like old man that's living in the basement of this manor house, and he's keeping his wife sort of alive. She's in like a coffin, and she's been like I'm not quite sure what happened. I think she's dead, but he's trying to bring her back to life.
Oh.
And so this is like the stuff that they kind of added in afterwards.
Oh.
Because the main thrust of the movie that is never at all in any way, shape, or form attached to the rest of the movie is this group of, I guess they're supposed to be teenagers, but they look anywhere from like 30 to like 50, end up coming to this house and crashing it, and it's an empty house, and they're having a party there, and then they all decide to go walk around the house by themselves for an hour.
Okay.
And get picked off one by one by a variety of monsters. I mean, we're talking these mud men that fart. There's like
this doesn't feel like a real movie.
No.
Are you punking us?
This feels fake.
There's mud men that every time they walk, they fart.
You know, maybe there's some way out of here. Maybe through some secret walls.
And so they're in the basement, and they're like just farting as they're like going after these people. There's like a spider queen. Movie. There's like a Death, who's actually just looks like a Party City skeleton. Like it's ridiculous. I know one of the people that I'm friends with on Twitter, his name's Morgan. He's at Morgan, or Morgan25 is his handle. He has been talking about this movie for years, and I'd been wanting to see it, and he thinks it's a masterpiece. I don't know if he says that facetiously or not, but it is something. It's crazy. I don't know what else to say.
Okay.
I definitely think you should watch it, Mary Beth, and maybe with like a few beers in cool. you or something.
Because I have it. Someone sold. I think I got it. I think I was at like Cinepocalypse or something, and someone told me, like from the Vinegar Syndrome booth, was telling me about it, and I was like, fuck it, why not?
Yeah.
As you were telling us about Spookies, I Googled it, and looking through the images as you were telling us all of that was a wonderful journey. Like, I saw the so-called teenagers, I saw death. I was there with you telling us all about this movie.
It's wild. It is absolutely wild.
I'm gonna see it.
And then the other thing that's not so wild, but is something that I'm writing about with Joe Lipsett again. We like to write about TV together. And so we got screeners to watch the new Penny Dreadful, City of Angels.
Sorry.
Wow.
And cool.
I love Penny Dreadful with my entire heart.
Me too. Penny Dreadful, the original Victorian series, is like one of my favorite pieces of television ever. It's so queer. It's so sexual. It's so horrific. I love, and so I was really curious to see what this was going to do. And there's a lot going on in this.
This is set in like the Black Dahlia kind of era, right?
It's set in 1938 in Los Angeles. And it's about, it's about race.
Okay. Yes. Is it done as poorly as I'm scared it's done?
No. I've only
Sorry
seen...
to put it that way, but just like a lot of the promotion, it's about Mexican American superstition folklore, but a lot of the cast is white. And so I on Twitter, on the internet, I've seen a lot of people being very skeptical about how that subject matter is being handled. So boy, there's a lot going on here. There's oh boy.
It opens up with Santa Muerta, who and her sister, I guess I'm not really familiar with Mexican folklore too much, but her sister Magda is played by Natalie Dormer from Game of Thrones, and she also plays like 3 other characters in this show. That this Magda is impersonating. But like, so they're trying to set up, she's trying to set up some like horrific events. And so it ties into the Germany Nazi infestation in the United States during that time, where they're getting involved with the politics of Los Angeles. It's about the fact that progress is coming in terms of the motorway, the freeway that's going to be opening up, and it's going right over a Chicano residency where our main character, he and his family, he's having to split with his family because he just recently got to become like a detective with the police department. His partner is Nathan Lane.
Nice.
And so there's like, and Nathan Lane is like on the side, like doing this kind of research into the Nazi infiltration. So there's a lot going on.
So there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. And I've only seen the first 2 episodes, and I'm not really sure where it's going to go, but it definitely feels a bit more stuffed, I would say, than the first iteration. But I'm really enjoying it. I think that they're laying out some really interesting threads that I really would like to see carried out. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
Cool.
Have you noticed that with a lot of TV, that it seems like we're getting kind of crazy with the ensemble casts and having way too many plot points going on at once?
Yes. And I'm afraid, because that's what I really liked about Penny Dreadful, was that it was mostly about this small family unit, and there were some side characters. But I mean, you have the family unit, you have the Jewish people played by Nathan Lane and his friends that are searching out the Nazis. You have this political thing of this mayor that's using all of this unrest to like further his career. Like, there's just so much going on. And
oh boy,
it is a stacked cast. I mean, you have everyone from like Piper Perabo. Lynn Shay is in it.
The fuck?
Yeah, Lynn Shay is in it playing Dottie, this like hearing deprived like Jewish woman that's working with Nathan Lane. You have like Rory Kinnear is in it. He was in the original.
Oh wait, yeah, he was
the
Calypso?
monster, right? Wasn't he the monster?
Yeah, I thought he gave himself a name.
Oh, did he?
Caliban, not Calypso.
Caliban.
I think he named himself
yeah.
Caliban.
Right,
Sorry,
right.
Caliban.
The cast is stacked, and I'm afraid, like you said, Andrew, that it's going to it's spreading itself a little too thin for 8 episodes, but we'll see. I'm into it. I'm curious to see where it's going to go. I haven't talked to Joe about it yet. I don't know if he's watched it yet. So by the time this airs, we'll know. But
right.
But yeah. So those
when is
are
it
the 2.
set to come out for like normal people to watch?
The first episode hits the Sunday that we're going to record this, the April 26th. So
it'll be out.
So it's out when this episode premieres. Yeah.
Yes.
So people
will
can
be
see.
a couple episodes in.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that's me. What about you, Mary Beth?
So I've continued my found footage journey, as I've talked about previously. I am just watching a lot of found footage movies for a personal project, and I watched 2 very good ones. I'm on a roll with good ones, or maybe I just think they're good and no one else does, but I don't care because I enjoy them. So this week I watched The Tunnel, which is a 2011 Australian found footage movie about a tunnel. Surprise. But it's about a film crew who's trying to expose a conspiracy about why the Australian government is not tapping into these underwater reservoirs to help solve a water shortage crisis. And they find out why they stopped doing that when they go into the tunnel. It's got a lot of watching it. It's As Above, So Below definitely took some cues from it in terms of like the underground feel and like the running through like very close spaces. There are definitely some influences there in terms of how it's shot, but I think it's got a really interesting way of showing the monster interacting with the camera. which I really am interested
cool,
in found footage when like the actual force or like whatever is the bad guy is interacting with technology. And so this is a really interesting moment of that, which I really enjoy. Like this thing it's not a big moment, but like he picks up the camera and like films people, which I think is really fucking cool, because a lot of the time you don't see that happen in found footage, and seeing like it makes it much more scary that you're seeing from the perspective of the monster.
It's the it's the POV shot.
Yeah, it's the POV shot, and you're seeing kind of the world from the monster's eyes in a way, which I think is really cool, and I think that adds a lot to the film.
That's so cool because it's more than just a POV shot. It's like he's like filming them, so he's like not just watching them, but doing something instead, doing an extra act more than just not attacking them. That's really creepy.
Well, it also suggests a kind of like sentience that you don't usually just ascribe to monsters in horror film, especially if they're like creatures lurking in the dark. But there is like a sentience and awareness of this creature that was really creepy, and so I really enjoyed that. And then I watched Afflicted, which is another found footage horror movie that is on Amazon Prime. Have either of you seen Afflicted?
Is that the one about the one with the vampire? Is that?
My ass didn't know it was a vampire. I would have watched this movie a long time ago. Because
you had.
I fucking love vampires, Andrew. Like, they are my shit. Man. So, like, I didn't know this about vampires. I tried, like, with found footage, I tried to go in, like, as blindly as possible, just because I feel like you can get spoiled really quickly on what they have to offer. So I didn't know anything. I just knew this guy got a disease or something. And so I watched it last night with my boyfriend, and I didn't know it was a vampire movie. And it was so fucking good.
Yeah? Oh, I'll check it out.
I really am amazed that I have seen not only a vampire movie, but it's a vampire found footage movie, a genre I'm not a fan of. I've seen it before you.
Terry, I'm embarrassed, okay? I finished watching it, and I was like, how did I go so long without watching this movie?
That's great.
I was embarrassed, but also very happy that I finally watched it. Terry,
it is good.
You liked it.
And it's been a long time because it came out like
2013.
Yeah. I think I saw it either 2013 or 2014. So I mean, it's been a good long time, but I remember actually really enjoying it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's weird. I liked it a lot, and I think it does a lot of really interesting. I'm on like this big kick right now and looking at how technology and found footage horror like go together, and how found footage adapts to technology, and how it is a very innovative subgenre, and not giving enough credit to how it tries to adapt to our latest technological advances.
Right.
And so I think that Afflicted does use GoPros in a really interesting way. I mean, someone on Letterboxd called it an ad for GoPro, which is hilarious. But it is a really interesting way of utilizing GoPros and live streams and the idea of vlogging. I think it tries to do a really interesting like interaction with how we view vlogging and creating content for the internet to share with everybody. So those were the two things that I watched that I really enjoyed, and I'm going to just keep watching found footage films and talking about them on the podcast, because, like, what else am I going to do with my time at this point?
There's so many to watch.
There are so many to watch, and there's actually, like, surprisingly good. And again, maybe I am just biased, but I've watched some really good ones, and I'll get to some bad ones eventually, probably. But at the same time, I'll probably find something good about them, because I'm trying to be like, these movies are actually really interesting, even if the subject matter isn't your favorite. Yeah. Like, you have to look at how cool it is that they're using, like, Google Glass or GoPros or, like, iPhones. So, anyway.
And so I just lent some music to a, like, really short quarantine found footage, like, 2-minute horror film. Like, it's a tiny little thing that is really fun, that Ian Hawke and Trevor Dillon, the directors of The Vicious and Foxwood, 2 horror films that I scored, they did this like in quarantine for fun.
Oh, wow.
And there's something about found footage that is inherently like a little bit I don't want to say more scary, but scary in a different way.
Yeah.
That even though you know it's not real, like it still feels as though you're holding the camera, and that's a different kind of scary.
Yeah, there's like a weird tangibility to it, especially because when a lot of these found footage horror movies insert like purposeful glitches to make the film broken, and like you're so used to having films
Pristine.
be perfect, pristine, exactly, pristine. Like, you want to be immersed, like, in scare quotes, in the world and not disrupted by errors. But then found footage is all about errors and showing you shitty camera work on purpose and, like, broken stuff. And that's scary because it's like, that feels more authentic, because what film wants to show you, like, bad footage?
Right.
So there's a lot of authenticity in that, like, in that purposeful destruction.
Right.
So I have a lot. We could talk about this for a very long time, so I'm going to change. I have a lot of thoughts.
Well, I also think that found footage gets a bad rep for, like, being, quote, easy to film or something, when I don't think it really is. I think it has its own challenges.
I agree with that. And I really want to talk to a found footage horror director. So if anyone listening to this wants to come on the podcast at some point in the future, hit us up.
Nice.
But so besides that, Andrew, what have you been watching recently?
What I have been watching since coronavirus has been going on for almost a month now, a little bit over a month. My wife and I decided we were going to, it's so vanilla, guys. I'm embarrassed to say it's so vanilla, but we decided we're going to watch the release order of all the Marvel movies.
Oh, okay. That's fun though.
It's a scoop of vanilla ice cream with, like, vanilla whipped cream with, like, vanilla M&Ms. It's all vanilla.
Look, sometimes it's what you need though, especially in a time like this. You need something that's, like, a little vanilla, and that's fine, because there's a shit ton of movies in that saga and it's like a lot of time for you. That's a lot of things and a lot of, like, a good project, I feel like.
Yeah, it felt like something to tackle, and then, like, it felt like something to say, like, well, we don't need to pick what to watch because we're watching 22 movies for 2 weeks.
22?
3 weeks. There's 22, maybe 23. I think 22.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and it was, originally we were going, like, night by night, and it was pretty good, but it started to get kind of exhausting because they're like loud and long and all the things that you don't want to watch every night back to back to back to back to back.
Yeah.
So we've taken some nights off, but
how far are you into it now?
We are waiting for the right night to watch Captain Marvel, which is one of the best ones.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah, so we're nearing the end of the line.
Okay. Have you seen all of them before? Like, have you both seen all of them and you're just revisiting them? Or is it a new experience for one of you?
I don't think Ashley's seen all of them.
Okay.
I've seen all of them, but then, like, I didn't really remember a lot of them. Like, I know that I went to the movie theater with my friend, my singer at the time, my friend DJ. We saw the first Thor together, but we had just come from a bar, so I definitely didn't remember that movie.
Hell yeah. Cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, and speaking of Thor, like, those movies, or at least the early ones, are basically just like the comic book movie version of a bodice ripper.
They really are. And, like, I think they're so boring.
Yeah.
They are a bodice ripper. It's like he looks like Fabio.
Yeah, and he's not the main character in those first two movies.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
He just, like, comes down and he's like, hello, I am the Thunder God. And she's like, oh boy. Like, it's a total bodice ripper. It
is.
And actually, I can't take credit for that. Ashley was the one that pointed that out to me. I was like, you're right. It's a bodice ripper. Like, the cover, you know, you're thinking of, like, Fabio on the cover.
Right.
Yeah. You're absolutely correct. I didn't even think about that.
Well,
I'm ruining Thor for all of the fanboys who love him.
And I feel like... well, Kenneth Branagh directed the first one, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah.
And... I love the third one. I mean, I think that's, like, a pretty widely accepted thing. The third one is very good and very different. But, like, the first two,
he got hot.
He got hot.
He got way hotter. Yeah.
I'm all about the short hair Hemsworth. I just gotta say.
Agreed.
Well, especially the first one, it was, like, clearly a wig or something.
Oh my God,
it was like
so
a powder wig.
Yes.
It was so strange. But yeah,
Cool. Well, that sounds like a fun quarantine activity. I'm going through the Resident Evil franchise, so, like...
Oh, I should do that next. That's cool.
Most of them are on Netflix.
Oh, good.
If not all of them. So Steve, my partner, and I are chipping away at that. Well, he's seen most of them, but I haven't, so we're chipping away at that. And that's been pretty fun, because they're, like, not the best movies, but they're really entertaining. So
they're entertaining, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say that the past couple of nights, I took a break from Marvel, and I watched the first 4 episodes of an Epix show called Perpetual Grace Limited.
I have never heard of that before.
I haven't heard of that either.
It's a sleeper. I think a lot of people are going to find it and realize how quirky and fun it is. I almost want to compare it to like if the Coen brothers did a TV show, because it's this great cast put in kind of like just outside the realm of reality, but close enough to reality that is believably and human and fun. Like it's an absurd story that's all connected and tied together. So far, it's really fun. I can't recommend it enough.
Oh my gosh, the cast, Ben Kingsley's in it, Jackie Weaver, Louise Guzman's in it.
What's his name? The Simpson, Jimmy Simpson.
And I love Jimmy Simpson. He was in Stay Alive, the horror video game movie that I will stand by forever.
Is that the Hulu one? No, he was in a Hulu one.
No, he was he was in something different, but Stay Alive is like a 2006 or something like movie about a haunted horror game by the ghost of Elizabeth Bathory. It's like pretty bad, but it's one of my favorites that I love to like push on people even though it's not great, and so I just bring it up. And someone just wrote about it recently. Matt Donato wrote about it recently, and I was like, justice for
he's been talking about it.
Alive.
Is that justice though? I mean, Demon Wind. Come on.
Vindicated. I am selfish. I am right. I swear I'm right.
Anyway, cool. So, okay. Hold on. Okay, I'm good. I'm back. Okay, got the giggles out.
All right.
For now. Okay, so we've talked about what we've been watching now, but what movie have you brought with you today, Andrew?
I have brought to talk about E.T. the Extraterrestrial.
In 1975, he directed Jaws. In 1978, he directed Close Encounters of the Third Kind. In 1981, he directed Raiders of the Lost Ark. And now, Universal Pictures presents Steven Spielberg's E.T. the Extraterrestrial.
So exciting. So before we start talking about E.T. the Extraterrestrial, I just want to read a quick synopsis of the film to get everyone caught up. So a group of alien botanists secretly visit Earth, but are forced to flee when government agents discover their presence. One of them is unfortunately left behind and ends up being discovered and befriended by 10-year-old Elliot. Elliot dubs the alien E.T. and introduces him to his brother and sister. The children decide to keep E.T.'s existence a secret as they figure out how to get him back to his family.
Can I just say how charming it is that E.T.'s introduction to human beings is through children?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
it's so sweet.
But then also kudos to Elliot for knowing the word terrestrial. Like, I never really noticed that. He's like, E.T. extraterrestrial. Like, I didn't know what that meant.
Also, I just want to say at the top of this that Elliot is now like a grown-ass man who was the dad in Hill House.
Oh my God. And he did such a good job in it.
He really did. When Mary Beth told me that, like last week, that I was like, no, really? That's him? No. I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Dude. Yeah.
Henry Thomas, I believe
I'm
his
so
name
glad
was.
that he's back. I don't know if he intentionally like took time off or what the story behind that is, but I'm glad that he is on that show or was on that show, because I think it's just for that season, and I hope to see him more.
Yeah.
Really.
He's in another movie called Dreamcatcher that's coming out. It's another horror movie that he's in, that he's pretty good in.
Was he in, I can't remember who directed the Hill House, but was he in one of his movies before he did Hill House?
He was in Gerald's Game.
Oh, that's right. He was in Gerald's Game.
Mike Flanagan's movie. So how old were you when you saw E.T. and what is the story behind this movie and its terrifying presence?
Well, first of all, I need to get this out of the way. I wanted to choose Jurassic Park.
Oh.
And I have a great story about why. Can I tell the story?
Absolutely. Please
Somebody
do.
else does Jurassic Park. I haven't listened to the episode, but I will.
You should, just because it's a hilarious story. Because Jessica, who did Jurassic Park, is absolutely terrified of it, and it's amazing.
Oh, that's great. Okay, well then I'm glad she got it, because
animatronic dinosaurs terrify her.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad she got it then, because that's better. Mine is just like a fun story. In the small town in New York where I grew up, Horseheads, New York, there was a drive-in movie theater that I hope is still around. I doubt it. But we used to go, and on Saturday nights, I think it was just during the summer, but they would have double features where they would play like a kid's movie and then an adult's movie. Not like a rated R movie, but like a more adult, like PG-13 movie, maybe, you know? Mm-hmm. So, you know, hoping that maybe the kids fall asleep and then the parents can usually it was like a rom-com, like they can watch like, You've Got Mail or whatever it is. And while their kids sleep in the back seat and then go home. This particular one was, I think, Free Willy and then Jurassic Park.
Oh, interesting.
So I fell asleep during Free Willy because who wouldn't? No. And I woke up during Jurassic Park during the scene when the T-Rex is trying to kill the kids who are in the car, the back seat of the car. And I'm in the back seat of a car. It was so terrifying. But I love that movie.
Spielberg, man.
Anyways, Spielberg. And I actually feel like E.T. in some ways was like a warm-up for Jurassic Park in some scenes.
Yeah.
Yes, I made notes about that from the beginning, just in the beginning opening with the score and everything, and there's the woods and there's the flashlights to the woods. It has a very like Jurassic Park feel to it.
Totally. And they were more than 10 years apart, which is wild to me. But to answer your question, I can't remember how old I was when I saw E.T., but I know that it was maybe a little bit too young to fully process the feelings in that movie.
Yeah.
And that might have led to like what was so scary about it. Not being able to process that intense, the way that death is introduced to a child audience in E.T. is so real that it was, I think that's a big part of why it was so scary. The ending of that movie is so scary. Seeing E.T. like pale and white like that is so frightening.
Yes.
Because you're facing death that's not like brought by the hands of a villain like Scar or something. It's you can't like easily blame a bad guy for the death of like the hunter and Bambi. You can't be like, that thing killed Bambi's mom. It's just death. It's just like normal. This is naturally occurring death.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard to process. And I think that translates to like really scary feelings. At least it did for me if I'm psychoanalyzing myself, you know?
No, that's an excellent point because, what I was picking up this time rewatching it was how omnipresent death is in this movie.
Yeah.
Just because you have like, there's so many different themes of death going on with like the death of the nuclear family. You have like,
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
You have like, E.T. who's dying and he's connected to Elliot. So Elliot is in turn like getting really sick. And you even have like the autopsy moment with like the frogs where they're asking the kids to kill the frog. I don't remember that ever happening in when I was that kid's age.
No.
I think the first time that we dissected something, it was like owl pellets in like 7th or 8th grade. And we didn't even go to like animals until like high school for me. And they were already dead.
Yeah. They were already
horrible.
dead. They smelled terrible.
Oh God, I can't, that smell.
Oh, I don't even know what it was. Was it like formaldehyde or something? Yeah. It was terrible.
And they would like permeate through the science hall all day.
Do you know what I do remember, though? I do remember my teacher in like 7th grade saying, we used to do this to live frogs. So I know they must have done it, but I don't know if they still did it in the 80s or if that was something that like Spielberg and the screenwriter, Melissa Matheson, I don't know if that's something they injected into the story that wasn't still happening in the 80s, but maybe happened in like the 50s, you know?
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah, that is horrible.
Yeah, because my 7th grade science teacher was like, we used to do this. We used to put them under and then cut so you could see the heart still beating. And being like, ugh.
That I wouldn't be able to do that. I can't handle it. That was the day that I dreaded in school. Like, I can watch all these horrific movies, but that moment when it's like real, no, can't do it.
And in the film, there's something really magical about, like, once Elliot starts to free the frog, like, all of the kids are like, yeah, this is stupid, because, like, it is stupid. And kids know that, but the adult science teacher doesn't seem to remember or know that feeling of, like, we shouldn't do this to animals.
Yeah. So it seems like you had kind of almost an existential like fear to this movie just because of like the nature of death. But do you remember was it that overall, do you think, or was there like scenes or anything that really stood out to you as a kid that you remember?
Well, I think it's almost like a lot of the movie almost plays as like a PG version of a horror movie in some scenes, like especially the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then definitely like the end when E.T. is like pale and dying. There's a scene actually before that, right before that, if I'm remembering, there's a scene where the like FBI or the government people are like going in to the home because the home is empty and they're like searching it. And that almost feels
that's the worst scene.
Yeah. Because they're invading this space that we've come to love.
Yeah.
Our beloved characters' like home. But it's shot with these shadows and the lights, and it almost feels like Poltergeist or something. It's really cool, which I think is the same year, right? 1982. 83?
Yeah, I think so. I know he was working on them around the same time.
Right.
But like that scene with the spacesuits and they're climbing in through the house.
Yeah.
Freaked me out as a kid.
Me too.
Really?
That was the scariest scene. Like when I was thinking about the scariest scene in this movie, that was the one where like I think I shut down watching the movie and like didn't understand what was happening and was very confused and was like, there are more aliens. Like I don't think I could conceive of the fact that like the government would do this as a child.
Right.
Like I could not conceive of that as a possibility. And I was just very upset with the way they were treating the family and Elliot and E.T. And I think my small brain was just like unable to comprehend that those were human beings doing that.
Same.
Like, I don't think I could grasp it. And it scared me and it upset me so much. And I think like that definitely horrified me. Like it wasn't E.T., but it was it was people that scared me when I watched that movie.
Right.
How old were you when you saw it, Mary Beth? Do you know?
I don't even remember. It's like, it feels like it's a movie that like I've always known about.
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
Like, I don't even remember the first time I watched it. I just remember all I remember from the first time watching it is taking away that you could put the thermometer on the light bulb.
Yeah.
And trick your mom. Like that's how I first learned about it was that. But I don't remember how old I was. I just remember watching it young and like it was just like one of the movies we all watched as a family.
I think the best way to sum up how I feel, and I think how you feel, Mary Beth, is that I don't remember the first time, like I don't remember when I watched it or the first time I watched it, but I remember the way I felt the first time I watched it.
Yeah, exactly. Like very much like, and I was a very sensitive kid who like, I still am a sensitive person. Like I cry a lot and like very easily. And so like.
That's good. That means you're a human. You know? I
think I just like it happened to me in movies about dogs and people and like I get too attached to that relationship. And this, I had the same thing with E.T. and Elliot. And when he started getting treated poorly, I got so upset.
Yeah.
It's like E.T. is a person, God damn it. Or at least like the equivalent of a person.
Right.
And I think that just like in my brain, I couldn't comprehend cruelty like that, I guess.
Right.
Or what I perceived as cruelty. So
Terry, I want to go back, and I think this is going to answer your question, Mary Beth. I wanted to go back to how you, Andrew, were saying that it's almost like a PG horror movie because I don't remember how old I was, just like the rest of us, but this movie has always been part of my young life.
Yeah.
But it terrified me in more than multiple times. Like as I was rewatching it, I was like, okay, I remember when Elliot is walking through the cornfield.
Yes.
And the lights.
That's a PG jump scare.
Yes, and it's a perfectly staged scare where, you know, first he hears something, then he sees the footprints and the following the light, and all of a sudden it hits him, and it's the first time we actually really get to see E.T., and he, like, is so animated, and he's flailing his arms, and he's screaming like a
The scream is very scary.
Yeah, I had vivid memories of that scene as a kid. And I, again, don't remember how old I was. I saw it, but it must have been very briefly before I was introduced to like real horror movies. And yet this, for some reason, has left lasting impressions on my mind more so than any of the grotesque horror movies that I saw at that time. And so I remember that scene really got me. And then the scene where a little bit later when Elliot is falling asleep, he fell asleep outside and he's like trying to, you know, keep watch over the creature. And he's standing in like the shed and he's like just illuminated by the fog. And then he just starts like shuffling forward briefly.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
And he's like, he's moaning and he's like making all these grunting noises.
Yes.
And you don't see him. He just like all of a sudden he's there and then he like shuffles forward like suddenly. And I remember, I completely forgot that this happened to me, but I remember having a vivid nightmare about a slimy hand reaching out and like touching me because of the you know, he's like paralyzed and he's trying to call for his mom and his brother and this hand is reaching out. And of course it's just to drop Reese's Pieces on his blanket. It's a nice thing. But like, I remember having vivid nightmares about the scene of this hand coming out, the slimy, weird, otherworldly hand and touching me.
And it's played that way. It's intentionally scary so that the Reese's Pieces drop is like a turn.
Yeah.
So they are trying to scare kids. This is like crazy. I had nightmares about like spacemen standing in the window looking in at my mom washing the dishes and she couldn't see the spaceman that I could see.
Ugh.
And that's like totally what happens. They're like reaching through the windows and stuff. Like
they're like zombies. They're coming through the house like zombies and like Night of the Living Dead. It's a very much a home invasion moment of the movie at the end.
In a way that's kind of not realistic, but childlike in the way that like that's how the kids in the movie would have seen that.
Yeah.
Which brings up a thought that I had when I was watching it most recently is that a lot of this movie is shot from the angle of the kids, like low angled, looking up at the mom.
Yeah.
When Elliot is in, like, Mary Beth, when you said he like touches the thermometer to the thing, the camera is like up by the ceiling because Elliot is in the bunk bed looking down at the family. It's like shot from the kid's perspective, the whole movie. It's crazy.
It is. And the thing that I noticed this time watching it that I never really I mean, there's a lot I didn't think of when I was a kid. I was just scared. But, you don't really see any of the adults' faces, and except for the mom. It's not until the very end with the scientists, where after they've taken off their spacesuits and whatnot, that you even see an adult face. Like even in class with the teacher, everything is from the kid's perspective and it's faced downward on the kid. So you don't see the man that's handing out like the assignments and stuff.
That's
and
true.
You don't see any adult faces except for Mary, the mom.
Very Charlie Brownish, like.
Yeah.
You know?
Wah, 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 wah. And, you know, another scene, like there's so many that came to me when I was rewatching this, but it's so small, but it freaked me out as a kid was when the mom goes into the closet and like the camera passes over all of the animals and there's E.T. like standing completely still. It's not supposed to be a scary moment, but it terrified me as a kid because I had piles of animals like that. And it's like, oh my God, what's hiding behind those that I can't see?
And it's not you're right. It's not a scary moment, but it almost feels like it's filmed like a scary moment, like it's coming across. Yeah. Interesting.
It's all those little tiny moments like that. Even when like Gertie, who I completely forgot that Drew Barrymore was in this.
Yes.
But like, even when she meets E.T. for the first time and his neck extends and he screams, she screams. And then like the scene where she's in the closet. And he comes like running after her with his arms up, and the kid again. It freaked me out. Now I'm like, I was laughing hysterically at the image of it. But as a kid, seeing him like running with his arms up, like he's chasing her, terrified me.
Right.
Well, and also like he's the size of a kid, so I feel like when he's that size, it's so much scarier because he's on your level.
Right.
Like now as an adult, I'd be like looking down and be like, "Hello, small friend," or like short friend, but. You know, he is the size of those kids. So he is like their level and much scarier. And I think that's why I mean, that makes sense, Terry. Like, I think that was why I was so nervous about E.T. because he was like my size, but very much not a human. And it was very strange, like almost uncanny. Because uncanny seems like the wrong word because he doesn't look like a person. But like he kind of has like the eyes, the mouth, like the interactions. So it was very off me.
Well, and I think it kind of goes back to, what goes back to what you were saying, Andrew, about how it's filmed, because I think the fact that it's filmed at our level and he is our size as a kid where we're watching it really heightens the horror, because it's not looking, because like, let's be honest, if the camera was up above and it's from an adult perspective down at him, this is a little tiny like munchkin dude, right? But because the camera and everything is set from our perspective as a kid while we're watching it, it makes him feel bigger than life.
Right.
But I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Andrew. What were you going to say?
I was just going to compliment the puppetry and how in other moments of the film, when E.T. just looks over and does like a gentle smile, it's like, it's not a puppet anymore. It's emoting so strongly without any words. And actually, there is an actress who's credited for E.T.'s voice, and her name, I have to say, Pat Welsh. You have to look up videos of this woman. She's amazing. She's at the time of E.T. was an older woman, very small and very sweet. And you got to find a YouTube video of Pat Welsh and just listen to her natural voice is E.T.'s voice. It's so charming.
Meet Pat Welch.
Ouch.
Oh, that's adorable. So looking at it as an adult, though, this movie is brilliant, isn't it? It's so good.
Yeah.
From the moment, like, I kind of want to talk about the score, because we spent the last like hour talking about how music can tie into feelings. And let me tell you first two things. The first one is that when it starts, it has an almost like Alien vibe. Like the sound, the score has that kind of like the original Alien opening vibe. Where it's like this very ominous, otherworldly, like not even real music kind of sound.
Thinking what we know about the E.T. as a movie now, you wouldn't expect the first sound to be, and it's a super ball, which is the type of rubber mallet that is like causes a lot of friction when you rub it on something, and it's a super ball being rubbed on a gong, and I actually have a patch of it loaded up. You would be surprised that this is the first sound you hear in E.T.
Yes.
It's this weird...
It's
crazy.
It's so otherworldly. And it brought to mind like the Alien. Like I was immediately like put on edge of the same way that like the score from Alien was just so otherworldly. And then it transitions into the scene that just brought me back to being a kid, and the music. That E.T.'s theme is just, it's so wonderful.
What I think, and if we're going to jump into the score, I'm so excited. What I think is great about E.T.'s musical world that we live in is we don't actually like fully hear E.T.'s theme. We don't hear that full theme until they take off in that epic moment and they're flying on the bicycle. It's like hinted at every now and then.
Yeah.
And there's a theme that's like very similar to that theme that John Williams and Steven Spielberg refer to as The Call. And it's this. And that's a very It's a theme that's very similar in that it jumps up a fifth, jumps up that musical interval of a fifth.
Yeah,
but it's not quite the theme. It just hints at it. I would love to play this clip of John Williams and Steven Spielberg talking about The Call. Can we do that?
Yeah, go for it. Definitely.
All right, cool. This is them with like a little, like watching the film on like a little, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a little projector that only plays. It's like a TV, but for film. It would project a light up onto a screen.
Okay, yeah.
Is it like a Mariola or something? I can't remember the name of it. But they're watching the film, and John and Steven are at John's piano. It's really cool.
If it would be convenient to go into The Call.
Yeah. I like that. Matter of fact, it seems like a very natural transition into the loneliness and out of the tenderness. I always get that confused.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Does it ever go up once in the movie yet? It hasn't gone up yet, has it?
At the end, I'll save it for the last reel.
Wow.
Up or down? Maybe once down. It could go down once and then go up.
So is that them basically like scoring the film right there live? Like, is that what that is?
That's likely them during what we call playback, or even it might be when they're spotting it. But they're definitely like deciding what musical cues and what themes should play when. So in a modern scoring sense, like I would have the director come over and we play things on our computer and they watch the movie while it plays back like the computer mock-up of the score. And that's called playback, saying like, hey, look, we're here to watch these 4 scenes that I'm worked on and I need your approval. And if you have any notes or tweaks, things like that. So to me, that seemed like somewhere between spotting session, which is like, before you write any music, you sit down with the director and talk about the whole movie. For a feature, it can take like a whole day. Somewhere between the spotting session and like a playback, which on a movie like this wouldn't have, like Steven Spielberg didn't hear this music until he was standing with the orchestra, you know?
Yeah.
So that might have been like the 1981, 1982 version of a playback where they're going through and saying, oh, here's a perfect part for, you know, this theme and that theme. And
wow, that's amazing.
That's so
amazing.
Cool.
And that video, you can find that on YouTube. It's so cool. They dug it up for a documentary. I can't remember what documentary it was, but it was cool.
That is cool. Would you mind sending us the link so we can like link that in the if you have it?
I will send it to you for sure.
Okay. So wow. That man. What? So there is one scene that like really hit me this time. A lot more than I ever remembered it. It's the realization that it's a divorced family. Like the dinner scene.
Dad would believe me.
Maybe you ought to call your father and tell him about it.
I can't. He's in Mexico with Sally.
Do you like that scene was so intense for me this time rewatching it. Just the kind of argument that sort of like evolves from no one wants to believe Elliot and he's like, well, Dad would believe me. And then it kind of like reminded me a little bit of Hereditary, where she's immediately like, well, maybe you ought to call your father and tell him about it. Like, it's like this, it's a very like tense filled conversation. And he immediately responds, I can't, he's in Mexico with Sally. And we don't know who Sally is, but I'm assuming Sally is his new fling.
Right. We don't know who she is, but we know who she is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's that scene, man, it really hit me this time. And it also establishes the emotional journey that Elliot's going to go on, because his brother's like, why don't you ever think about someone else for a change?
That is exactly the call to action, isn't it?
Yeah, it
Grow
is.
up and think about somebody else. It's like, and he gets up from the table and goes over to the window.
Yeah.
And actually, that is the moment where another moment where we hear the call. He's looking out the window, the steam is coming out. That's a moment where we hear the call. That's why, like, them calling that theme "The Call" is so great, because it is like a call of something else out there calling to us.
That is really so neat.
Yeah.
The other thing that, like, I realized this time watching is just how much Stranger Things owes to this movie.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Like, I forgot, like, all of it. The kids playing D&D, the kids riding around towns on the bike.
On the bicycles. And I think they even use, like, the same van in Stranger Things, like a same model of van or something.
Even, like, discovering something's outside that, you know, and they try to hide it from their parents in Stranger Things. It's, you know, 11. And then the scientists and the government types ultimately being, like, you know, like the bad guys in a way, and going to look for the thing, and they have to, like, keep it from them. Like, there's so much going back to this movie that, like, I've realized how much Stranger Things owes.
And the way that kids talk to each other in the 80s. Like,
yes.
insults.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Penis breath.
It was nothing like that, penis breath.
Penis breath. Oh, it's great.
And Dee Wallace's response to that, where she's, like, trying to be an adult.
Elliot! Sit down.
But she's also, like, laughing along
She
with
laughs. Yeah. It's very charming.
She's so good in this movie.
She's like, Elliot. It's so good.
Like, Elliot.
She's like, that's funny, but you shouldn't say that.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the second movie we've covered with her in it for Scarred for Life. And
oh, really?
She's, because we talked about Cujo with April.
Cujo.
And man, she's phenomenal in this movie.
Yeah.
She does carry a lot.
Yeah.
I love in that dinner scene where, you know, like, she slams down the dishes and she's like, he doesn't even like Mexico.
He doesn't even like
or hates Mexico or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's just such, like, a relatable comment that, you know,
And an unsung amazing actor in this movie. I mean, everybody always talks about Henry Thomas and Dee Wallace and Drew Barrymore, but Robert I'm gonna say it poorly, but Robert McNaughton, who plays the older brother, Michael, he does a really great job in this movie, kind of playing this, like, he's like a good son to his mom and not always a good brother to Elliot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that scene when he yells at Elliot, it's almost like he's, like, trying to be the dad of, there's a lot of scenes where he's, like, trying to be the dad of the family for his mom.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting, like, and nuanced role for a teenager, basically, to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The theme of, like, not necessarily fatherhood, but, like, being that kind of, like, protector for someone is such an important theme in this movie, because you just mentioned the older brother doing it, and Elliot does it for E.T., and E.T. does it for Elliot. Like, it's almost like they're filling this, like, void that's left by the disintegration of the nuclear family at that time.
And the fact that scene at the dinner table was impactful for you this go around is kind of like, it's kind of telling, because that is the nugget of the rest of the movie. The absence of the father speaks to the entire character development of all of the characters, or most of the characters in this movie.
Yeah.
Even E.T., the absence of his family unit is a part of his, you know, arc.
Have you guys seen, like, the ripoffs of E.T.?
No,
like
I have not.
No, I haven't seen Mac and Me.
Oh my God. Mac and Me was directed by the guy that would ultimately direct Tammy and the T-Rex.
Oh my God. But what a good.
And that creature liked McDonald's. That was, like, a big, like, if this was, like, a shill for Reese's Pieces, that was a shill for McDonald's.
That's great. I've only seen clips of that movie whenever, God, what's his name? Paul
Rudd.
Paul Rudd is on Conan O'Brien's show. He shows a clip from that movie every time.
Yeah, I used to watch that as a kid. I used to really enjoy it as a kid. I have not seen it since then. I'm sure it's absolutely terrible.
Do we think Flight of the Navigator was an ET ripoff?
Flight of the Navigator, yeah, that was kind of like, another one was like The Explorers, I think it was called.
Okay.
There was like so many that just kind of came out, you know, as they do, like all the Gremlin ripoffs and everything that come out after a successful movie.
Or the Jurassic. So that director for Mac and Me did an ET ripoff and a Jurassic Park.
He did
response. I mean, it wasn't a full ripoff, but it was like, hey, mechanical T-Rexes, let's do it.
Yeah, basically.
A producer in a smoky room. Hey, you know what's really hot right now? Mechanical T-Rexes. Let's get one of those in a movie.
I mean, that's literally how that movie came about. Was some theater person had it. It's like, let's make a movie.
Have you guys seen the R-rated cut?
Yeah, the gore-rated cut.
Oh,
or the gore cut.
It's so good.
So fun.
I think it's such a fun movie.
It's so...
Ask Sam will talk about that movie. He loves that movie.
It's so dumb, but it's so good.
Yeah.
I love it.
You know, and there's one other thing I want to mention, and that's that when I was growing up, I asked my parents, what does Cine Supremus mean?
Zero charisma.
Cine Supremus.
Zero charisma.
Cine Supremus.
Shut up, Greg.
And no one could tell me. And now I had to like Google it because at the time Google didn't exist, and it basically means supreme nothing. But like, it is such like a random thing to put in a movie that's never explained. And it wasn't until this week I figured out what they're saying.
You are doing God's work, because I would not have. I just let that moment pass and just like, I don't know. So Elliot knew what extraterrestrial meant, and he knew what Cine Supremus is. Like, he's just got the vocabulary of like a 45-year-old.
Guys, what if Elliot was the real alien all along?
Boom.
Dun, dun, dun.
The real alien is the people we meet along the way.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Oh man.
So, shall we give this a 5 out of 5? Our ratings?
Yes.
Okay, so the rating this week is out of 5 Reese's Pieces, obviously. So, Terry, how many Reese's Pieces out of 5 do you give E.T.?
You know, on my Letterboxd, I have it as a 4.5, but rewatching it, it's a 5. This is a masterpiece that brings together delightful music, really well done scares, and heart. But it also it doesn't feel treacly or sappy. It feels very real and grounded in the emotion. And that's something that you don't see a whole lot, especially I don't think you see that a whole lot with kid movies today. Like, I don't know. This movie is something special, and it had been 30 years probably since I'd seen it. Like, I have not seen this movie since I was a kid, but it brought me back to being a kid, and that the kind of feeling of being a kid, not necessarily nostalgia. It just brought me back to what childhood was.
Yeah.
And I think it's a brilliant film. I think it definitely has held up over the years, and I definitely would give it 5 Reese's Pieces, if not more. What about you, Mary Beth?
5 out of 5 Reese's Pieces. This, like you said, this movie just feels like childhood. Like we all said, you don't remember seeing it, but you remember feeling it, and it's like you've always known about this movie, and it's just like such an important part of so many people's childhoods, and it's really this story that teaches you compassion and love, and the ways that love can, like the different ways that love can manifest, which I think is really important, especially for kids to understand that like love and family can mean so many different things. Compassionate person, and I think that movie just really, really stuck with me for a long time, and it still has stuck with me, and I think I can't even put into words like the emotional connection I have with it. But yeah, 5 out of 5 Reese's Pieces for that like strong emotional connection, and how desperately I wanted to have my own E.T. growing up. As a child of divorced parents with 2 younger brothers, I was like, I want my own E.T. But it didn't happen. That's okay. All right. So Andrew, you have the final word. How many Reese's Pieces out of 5 are you giving E.T. and what are your final thoughts?
Out of 5 Reese's Pieces, I think I'm just going to eat the whole bag in like one. I'm just going to pour the whole thing into my mouth.
Hell yes.
Hell yeah.
you can't eat only 5 Reese's Pieces. I dare you.
It's true. You can't.
No, but I love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies. I think even though it really was scary as a kid and, you know, makes kids face death in a really real way, you almost have to go through that extreme low to have that incredible soaring ending when he drives up to his friends and he's like, get on your bikes and get to the hill, go to the park. That it's just such an exciting ending to a movie. I can't even.
It's such a rush.
Yeah, it's such a rush. And it's so earned because you have that like really deep sadness right before it. Like, oh, there's no better feeling in a movie experience for me than when you first see like E.T.'s like chest start to glow and then Elliot's walking away and you see the flowers grow up and the music starts to pick up and you're like, oh, here we go. Like, I get so excited. So yeah, I'm going to eat the whole bag of Reese's Pieces. It's all for me. Yeah, I love this movie.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. This has been such a treat. A really wonderful joy.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for joining us to talk about E.T. This brought back so many different emotions, and I got to say, this was such a fun conversation.
Good, thank you.
But where can the listeners find you, and what do you have coming up?
I have the Shudder Queer Horror Doc coming up. It's kind of a weird time to answer that question because coronavirus kind of put things on hold. Some of the other projects on hold. Luckily, the Shudder doc had filmed before this all happened and they were editing while it all broke. But some of the projects that I maybe by now could have talked about are on hold until further notice. So I can't necessarily say what I'm up to next, but for certain, the Queer Horror doc is the Shudder Queer Horror doc is coming up, and listeners can find me through most of the social media platforms at Andrew Scott Bell. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and my website is andrewscottbellmusic.com. It desperately needs updating, but it's there. And in the meantime, you can go and listen to that Deathcember suite.
Yes.
Yes, please. We have the link is in the show notes, guys. So if you want to listen to that, and then we'll probably tweet out some links as well, along with the episodes, so people can hear your amazing work.
Oh, thank you.
So listeners, you've heard from us, but we want to hear from you. What was your experience with E.T. the Extraterrestrial? Send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com or reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
And I'm at Gaily Dreadful.
And of course, keep the conversation going with the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcasts.
And please don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe.
Thank you to everyone for listening. Thank you to Steve Barnold for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Everyone stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay creepy.
Wait, Sean did the music? I love Sean. Oh, that's so awesome. I'm going to text him. This is great.
Yes, and until next time.
As a person with a very deep voice, I'm hired all the time for advertising campaigns. But a deep voice doesn't sell B2B, and advertising on the wrong platform doesn't sell B2B either. That's why if you're a B2B marketer, you should use LinkedIn ads. LinkedIn has the targeting capabilities to help you reach the world's largest professional audience. That's right, over 70 million decision makers all in one place. All the big wigs, then medium wigs, also small wigs who are on the path to becoming big wigs. Okay, that's enough about wigs. LinkedIn ads allows you to focus on getting your B2B message to the right people. So, does that mean you should use ads on LinkedIn instead of hiring me, the man with the deepest voice in the world? Yes. Yes, it does. Get started today and see why LinkedIn is the place to be to be. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room?
It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.